Hello, and welcome back to Voices of the Great War. I am Liz Watson. Today we're going to be reading some more letters from the Eckert family, and the first one is from Carl to his brother George. And this is Carl's letter to his brother George, and it is dated September 9th, 1918. And it reads, Dear brother, had a letter from home giving your address and was not so well pleased that you are in an infantry training battalion. That sort of an outfit usually gets into things in a hurry, but there may be some chance to better yourself before you get over here. There are a good many of the earlier rivals that have been into it and out again safe, and their physical tests at camp were not as good as ours, so we should be able to do our bit and come out okay. I had a letter from Aunt Cassie one day last week, and she wrote about a Miss S., who is a friend of yours. So in case I happen to meet the lady, let me know her full name, as I am interested in the general welfare of her family. Since you and Otto are at camp, I made an allotment home. Also finished the payment of a $50 Liberty loan. Our outfit has been up the line and came out with one casualty. The sector was great at the time, although we did have some experience with gas. This is a great country for scenery, but everything else, the U.S. is the best in the world. Have seen a great deal of France already and been around all kinds of soldiers and seen their methods and equipment, which does not come up to ours. This will be all, so give my best regards to Otto and drop me a line once in a while. Your brother, Carl. So from Carl's letter, we can see that he has had some experience with gas while he was on the line. So a little bit about gas during World War I. So it was a new invention at that time as a method of warfare. Before World War I, it had not been used. And so the Germans were the first to use it. And at first they started off with tear gas, but then they moved beyond that. So next they went to chlorine gas, and they used this during the Second Battle of Ypres in 1915, I believe. And this gas, like I said, it was different, and it was scary, and it would come across as kind of this green fog, and you could see it coming in across the field. And like I said, that this was a new scary method of warfare. And this chlorine gas, it would asphyxiate you, it would choke you, and it did it very quickly. So they started off with that method, and then, and yes, both sides eventually did end up using gas. And then the next method that they went to was something called phosgen, which was this particular gas where it also affected the lungs, and eventually what it would do, it would cause the lungs to fill up with fluid and put the patient in, or put the soldier into what they call pulmonary edema. But that took sometimes as long as a couple of days to happen, where the chlorine gas, that was much faster. It was pretty much instantaneous. And so what the soldiers learned to do, even with the chlorine gas, is they had learned to, one method before we came out with the invent of, or before we started using gas masks, is they would actually take cloths and urinate on them and then hold them over their face, because it would actually help to neutralize the gas. So to battle the gas, they started issuing gas masks, and I have one of those here. I'm gonna hold it up here. So this is kind of what the gas mask at the time looked like. And so the soldier would hurry to get this gas mask on their face. Eventually, they ended up moving to mustard gas as well, and that was something that actually caused chemical burns on the skin. So gas was it was a horrific method of warfare that, again, both sides did start to utilize, and it was that could cause some terrible things to happen to the soldiers. Yes, it obviously caused death, especially with the chlorine gas and the phosgene. But then when he moved to the mustard, those chemical burns on the skin, and it caused blinding, and it was a horrific thing to happen to a soldier, and it was very frightening. And when the gas attacks would start, they would often sound different alarms within the trenches, so the soldiers would again hurry up and get those gas masks on. And prior to the gas masks, again, it was okay, what are we, they would have to, like, try urinating on a cloth and holding it over the face to help again neutralize that gas. So a very scary method of warfare at that time. So now we're going to move on to our next letter. So this letter is actually from Odo, and it is written to his mother. So this letter was written on September 13th, and so this is Odo's letter to his mother from September 13th. And so this letter reads, "Dear Mother, I have been moved from the rest camp where both George and I were stationed, and am now split from George. I am not doing anything just now, but expect to start training within a week or 10 days. This is a nice country over here. All the houses and fences are built of stone. Have not heard from Carl yet since I am over here, but on account of moving, I expect it will take at least 2 weeks for an answer to a letter. Hope everything at home is going along all right. How about that new draft from 18 to 45 years of age? I hope there is nothing to that news. So Albert will be left at home. How is Pop and everybody else? I am seeing all kinds of sights and surely do enjoy them all. Saw some goats over here and some sheep. Also saw quite a few families living gypsy style. I will write again. Your loving son, Odo J. Eckert." So from Odo's letter, we can see that he has heard news of the draft, ages 18 to 45-year-old men at that time. So the older one was very interesting, especially for America. It did take America quite some time to enter the war. The war started in 1914, but America did not officially enter it until 1917. And it wasn't, it was hard because America was a melting pot at that time, and it had, you had families from all different nations. You had German families, you had Austrian families, and you had Russian families, Polish families, Italian and Irish. And so again, you had a lot of different nationalities here in this country. Yet in Europe, you have Germany against England, Germany against France, Germany against Belgium. So that's hard because for America to enter the war, it's now you're going to have your German citizens here having to fight maybe even family members from back home. So that kind of idea was very hard. Also, you had some people that might not be really enthusiastic to join the cause. For example, if you had with your Irish immigrants, they weren't exactly probably enthusiastic to support Britain in this because a lot of them were very much for home rule, which meant Irish rule. And so they were probably, a lot of them were not very enthusiastic again about supporting Britain in this battle. Also, you had Russian immigrants that were not really enthusiastic about supporting Russia in this fight because they had come away from Russia trying to escape that. So it was very interesting because you did not have an entire country of people that was enthusiastic about getting into war. And Woodrow Wilson also, he did not really want us to get into the war at the time. He was president. He did not want us to get into the war at the time. They had an idea of neutrality. They were going to try to remain neutral at the time, as neutral as they could, which really at the end of the day, it was probably, unfortunately, this idea of neutrality was more of an illusion. They were selling a lot of armaments and equipment, and it was going really to the Allies. So that this idea of neutrality probably wasn't, it was more of an idea, I guess, is probably a better way to say it, than an actual thing in existence. And then, so it did take, again, did take a couple years for America to enter the war, and a couple things did happen that encouraged that that end result. You had the sinking of Lusitania, in which a German U-boat sank that boat, and on that boat we had American passengers. So that was one event. And then it was also discovered that there was something called the Zimmermann Plan, and Zimmermann's idea was that they were trying to get Japan and Mexico to start a war with America, and that was from Germany. So Germany was trying to encourage Mexico and Japan to start a war with America. So once that was found out too, it was, there's really no way at this point now we can maintain this idea of neutrality. We're going to have to do something. So Woodrow Wilson, who had spent the better part of 2 years saying, this is not a good idea. We don't want to go to war. We want to try to handle this peacefully. He had no choice. And so we entered the war. War was declared. And so that happened in April of 1917. But we did not have a big army. The American army at that time was not big, and they were not trained for war. So it took a lot of effort now. Now that we've spent 2 years saying, let's keep peace, let's not enter the war, now we have to turn around pretty quickly and encourage people to do just the opposite. So that took some doing. And again, we had to institute a draft, but they didn't exactly call it a draft. It was selective service. So, and that did help bring in a lot of fit men to join the cause. And so, but again, the large portion of the fighting force was not able to really enter the war until the war itself in Europe until 1918. So it did take some time before they were able to get those boys over there, because you had to get them trained and you had to get them ready to go. So even though we entered in 1917, the large numbers of soldiers did not go over to Europe until around 1918. So that is a little bit about the draft and a little bit about how we entered the war. So now we're going to move on to another letter. So get this letter for you. So this is another letter from Otto to his mother. And so we can see this one. This one is dated September 28th, 1918. So this is from Otto to his mother. You can kind of see where he's also put his company up there in the corner. So this letter reads, Dear Mother, it has been several weeks since I last wrote home, but you'll have to excuse me for not writing, as I was being shifted about and did not have any permanent address until now. I am well and hope that everyone at home is the same. I have seen a great many small villages, and they are all alike to my eye. All the buildings are made of unfinished stone, and some have a little cement coating on the outside. I have seen quite a few vineyards and gardens, but no factories or anything like that. Almost all the women over here are out watching a few cows, goats, and long-eared white hogs, which they herd all together. I am back with 2 North Side 20th Zone boys who are with me in the tents at Camp Lee. Both are butchers, and Pop knows them or knows of them. One is Frank Hensler, who lived on City View, almost directly opposite grandmother's, and the other is Carl Heisch, whose people have meat shop on Spring Hill. I am in a company with a fine lot of boys and am well satisfied with them. I do not know where George is or his address, but I'm going to write to Carl for George's address. I have not wrote to Aunt Tanya, but will write in several days, as I will be busy for that long a time, at least, in exchanging summer wearing apparel for heavier goods, and will also spend a little time getting acquainted with these boys I am with. I have been meeting fellows from everywhere, and the boys I am now with are from Alabama, Tennessee, and Missouri, but do not have any show me ideas. Some of the places I see here remind me of the ocean. One is sky and water, and one is sky and land. I meet fellows from Pittsburgh everywhere I go. Tell Pop I was coming through a place on a train and saw about 30 herds of cattle in about a 10-mile stretch, and every one of them was solid white. We'll close with best wishes to all, from Odo. P.S. How is Albert doing with the birds? Does he ever fix up a few for market or food for the table? Ray is here somewhere too. He is in the same regiment, I think, as he came up here with me today. So we can see from Odo's letter to his mother that he is starting to see some interesting things, and he is also getting to meet all sorts of different boys from different places in his regiment. And so that was the interesting thing about the Rainbow Division. So he's part of the 42nd, which is the Rainbow Division, and the Rainbow Division was comprised of 26 different National Guard units from throughout the United States. So it wasn't like it was just one area where it was just one state of boys. I mean, you had boys from everywhere, as you can see, Alabama, Tennessee, and Missouri. So it's probably very different for Odo, who, those that are from maybe the hills of Tennessee are probably used to hunting and fishing and those types of things. And Odo, he's from Pittsburgh, and he's probably more used to building. So, they probably had quite a few stories to share. We also got to hear that he is exchanging summer garments for winter garments. So I do have two different uniforms I want to show you. So the first one we have is a World War I uniform this is the summer wear that they had. So you can kind of see with the sleeve here, this material, it's a much thinner material here. So this would be the summer wear. But when he's exchanging it for the winter wear, this is the winter wear, and this is actually from the Rainbow Division. It's not Odo's, but this is from another soldier in the Rainbow Division, and this is their Rainbow Division patch here, that 42nd Division patch. So we can see here that it's a much thicker wool-like material. It's very heavy, and I imagine, I hope it would keep them, pretty warm in the outdoors. And we can also see, I would like to show you the patches. So we have these chevrons here as well. So the chevrons, these gold chevrons here, every 6 months that a soldier was in the zone of advance, they would get one of these chevrons. And the zone of advance it basically means that they're in the line of fire or close enough to the enemy that they have the potential of being wounded or killed by artillery or gas. So this particular soldier had 2 of those, so we can see that he was over there for at least 2 6-month periods. And he also has this red chevron here, and this was issued to soldiers that were overseas for at least a year. So this is the jacket here, and you can also see the buttons up here, and they have kind of eagles on them. But yes, much thicker, this winter wear. So that is what Odo was being issued, a much thicker material jacket. So we have one more letter that we're going to read. And this is another letter from Odo, and this one is also to his mother, and this one here is dated October 8th. So this letter reads, Dear Mother, I was not busy, so I thought I would write to you and let you know I am in good health and feeling fine. I just wrote a letter to Carl. I have been assigned to an auto maintenance team and have some very nice fellows on the team with me. I have not been sent to the front just yet, but have been moving from one place to another a great deal. There are plenty of sites over here. Some places the walls of houses are all shot down and nothing is left of the towns but rock piles. There are plenty of airplanes and balloons over here, and I often see as high as 30 planes in the air at one time. The weather over here is almost like the first part of September would be at home, so we have no trouble to keep warm and comfortable. We are getting plenty of everything to eat and drink, but have to take a long walk to get water sometimes. But there is always plenty when we get there. I do not think the war will last much longer and expect we'll be back home soon. We'll close with best wishes from your loving son, Private Odo J. Eckert, Company L, 167th Infantry, France. So we can see that wherever Odo is, he is seeing all the damage that the war had done to the villages and towns in Europe, and it decimated in some cases entire towns. Again, the city of Ypres, which was nicknamed Wipers because it was almost wiped off the map. I mean, the big artillery guns, they were able to just fire these huge shells, and they destroyed towns and turned these beautiful ancient buildings into piles of rock, and it was very, very sad. So I imagine for Odo, it's quite an eye-opener seeing all of those things. He did say that he did feel as though the war was nearing its end, and we do know by this time in October that it was getting close. It had about another 5 weeks or so at that point, because it ended November 11th. So he's right about that. It is getting closer to coming to an end. So that is our last letter from the Eckert family for today. And I hope that you have enjoyed hearing about our boys. And until next time, this is Liz Watson, and this is Voices of the Great War. Thank you.